The diner's neon sign flickered like a dying heartbeat, casting a sickly pink glow over the cracked asphalt of Route 66. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of burnt coffee and grease, and the jukebox hummed a lonely tune that nobody danced to. It was just past midnight, and Ellie Harper, a waitress with tired eyes and a smile that clung to her face like a lifeline, wiped down the counter for the 100th time that night. Her hands trembled slightly, not from exhaustion but from the three men at the corner booth, thugs, locals called them, with leather jackets that reeked of cigarette smoke and menace. They'd been harassing her for hours, their voices loud, their laughter cruel, their eyes tracking her every move like wolves circling prey. Ellie's heart pounded as she poured another round of coffee, her mind racing with the fear she couldn't let show. She was alone, the cook long gone, the diner empty except for these men who seemed to grow bolder with every passing minute. Then, the bell above the door jangled, and the world seemed to pause. Heavy boots thudded against the linoleum, and a group of bikers, 5 of them, broad-shouldered and clad in worn leather, stepped into the diner, their presence filling the room like a storm rolling in. Ellie's breath caught, unsure if this was salvation or something worse. The leader, a man with silver in his beard and scars on his knuckles, locked eyes with her, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between them, a flicker of understanding that would change everything. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of standing up for what's right, please hit that like button, drop a comment, share this story, and subscribe to Gentle Hearts. Your support keeps these stories alive, and we'd love to hear how this one touches you. Ellie Harper had worked at the Starlight Diner for 6 years, ever since she was 19 and running from a life that had already broken her too many times. The diner, with its chipped formica tables and flickering fluorescent lights, was her sanctuary, the only place she'd ever felt she could rebuild herself. She'd grown up in a small town just a few miles down the road, raised by a mother who loved her but couldn't protect her from a father who drank too much and spoke with his fists. When Ellie was 17, she'd left home with nothing but a backpack and a heart full of bruises, promising herself she'd never let anyone make her feel small again. The diner had given her a job, a purpose, and a fragile sense of safety. She learned to smile through the pain, to laugh off the crude comments from truckers, to keep her head down when trouble walked in. But tonight was different. The 3 men in the corner booth, Tommy, Ray, and a third whose name she didn't know but whose sneer made her skin crawl, weren't just passing through. They were locals, known for causing trouble, for taking what they wanted and leaving chaos in their wake. They'd been coming to the diner for weeks, each visit worse than the last, their taunts growing sharper, their hands lingering too long when she passed by with their plates. Tonight, they'd stayed past closing, refusing to leave, their voices slurring as they demanded more coffee, more food, more of her attention. Ellie's stomach churned as she moved behind the counter, her hands shaking as she gripped the coffee pot, her mind screaming for a way out. She was alone, the manager out sick, the cook having left early for a family emergency. The phone was in the back office, too far to reach without them noticing. She felt trapped, her world shrinking to the space between the counter and their booth, her heart pounding with the certainty that something terrible was coming. The air in the diner felt heavier now, charged with a tension that made Ellie's skin prickle. The thugs had noticed the bikers' arrival, their laughter dying down as they sized up the newcomers. Ellie stole glances at the bikers as they settled into a booth near the door, their movements deliberate, their voices low but carrying an authority that made the room feel smaller. The leader, the one with the silver beard, had a face weathered by time and hardship, but his eyes were sharp, almost kind, though Ellie didn't dare trust that yet. His companions were a mix of ages and builds, one younger, with a restless energy and tattoos snaking up his arms, another older, heavy-set, with a laugh that rumbled like thunder, and 2 others who sat quietly, their gazes scanning the room like sentinels. Ellie's hands moved mechanically, refilling the coffee pot, her mind racing with questions. Were these bikers trouble, too? Would they make things worse? She'd heard stories about biker gangs, their reputations for violence and lawlessness, but something about these men felt different. They weren't loud or brash, they didn't demand attention. They just sat, watching, as if they could sense the storm brewing in the diner's stale air. Ellie forced herself to keep moving, to act normal, but her heart was a drumbeat in her chest, each step toward the thugs, booth feeling like a march toward a cliff's edge. Tommy, the ringleader, leaned back in his seat, his eyes glinting with malice as he called her over, his voice dripping with mockery. "Hey, sweetheart, you gonna keep us waiting all night?" he drawled, his words slurring slightly from the whiskey they'd been sneaking from a flask. Ellie's stomach twisted, but she plastered on her smile, the one she'd perfected over years of survival, and walked toward them, her legs heavy as lead. The bikers' presence seemed to shift the balance in the room, though Ellie couldn't yet say how. The thugs were still loud, still dangerous, but there was a new wariness in their posture, a slight hesitation in their laughter. Ellie poured coffee for Tommy, her hands steady despite the fear clawing at her insides. His fingers brushed hers as she set the pot down, deliberate and invasive, and she flinched, hating herself for it. Ray, the one with the sneer, laughed, a sound that grated against her nerves. "What's the matter, Ellie? You scared of us?" he taunted, leaning forward, his breath sour with alcohol. She didn't answer, just stepped back, her eyes darting toward the bikers' booth. The leader was watching, his expression unreadable but intense, like he was measuring the weight of the moment. Ellie's heart sank. She couldn't rely on strangers, couldn't afford to hope for rescue. She'd learned long ago that the only person she could trust was herself. But as she turned back to the counter, the leader stood, his chair scraping against the floor, and the diner fell silent. He moved slowly, deliberately, his boots echoing in the quiet, and Ellie's breath caught as he approached the thug's booth. He didn't speak, didn't raise his voice, just stood there, his presence a wall of quiet strength. The thugs shifted uncomfortably, their bravado faltering under his gaze. "You boys about done here?" the biker asked, his voice low but carrying the weight of a man who'd seen enough fights to know how they ended. Tommy smirked, but it was weaker now, less certain. "Just having some fun," he said, his tone defiant but brittle. The biker didn't smile, didn't blink. "Fun's over," he said simply, and the air in the diner seemed to tighten, like a rope pulled taut. Ellie watched, frozen, as the moment stretched, each second heavy with possibility. The other bikers had risen now, standing behind their leader, not threatening but present, their solidarity a silent promise. Ellie's mind raced. Part of her wanted to scream at them to stop, to not make things worse, but another part, the part that had been beaten down and silenced for too long, felt a spark of something she hadn't felt in years, hope. The thugs exchanged glances, their confidence eroding. Tommy tried to hold his ground, muttering something about not taking orders from some old biker, but the leader didn't flinch. He leaned in slightly, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "You don't want this to be your story, kid," he said, and there was something in his tone, part warning, part compassion, that made Tommy's smirk falter completely. Ellie's heart pounded as she watched, her fear mingling with a strange, unfamiliar warmth. These men, strangers with rough hands and weathered faces, were standing up for her, not because they knew her, but because it was right. The thugs muttered curses, threw some cash on the table, and shuffled out, their bravado reduced to sullen glares. The bell jangled as they left, and Ellie let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The diner felt lighter, the air less oppressive, but her legs trembled as she leaned against the counter, her emotions a tangle of relief and disbelief. The bikers didn't leave right away. They returned to their booth, ordered coffee and pie, and sat quietly, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Ellie moved through her tasks in a daze, her mind replaying the moment, her heart still racing from the nearness of danger and the unexpected rescue. When she brought the bikers their order, the leader, whose name, she learned, was Jack, thanked her with a nod, his eyes kind but guarded. "You okay, kid?" he asked, and the simple question nearly undid her. She nodded, her throat too tight to speak, and hurried back to the counter, blinking back tears. As the night wore on, the bikers stayed, their presence a quiet anchor in the empty diner. Ellie found herself stealing glances at them, piecing together their story from the patches on their jackets, the scars on their hands, the way they spoke to each other with a familiarity that spoke of years on the road. They weren't angels, she knew that, men like them carried their own ghosts, but they'd chosen to stand up for her, and that choice changed something inside her. For the first time in years, she felt seen, not as a waitress or a punching bag or a girl running from her past, but as a person worth protecting. As dawn broke, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, the bikers prepared to leave. Jack lingered at the counter, sliding a few bills under his empty coffee mug. "You ever need us, you call," he said, handing her a card with a number scrawled in faded ink. Ellie took it, her fingers brushing the worn paper, and nodded, unable to find words for the gratitude swelling in her chest. The bell jangled as they left, their bikes roaring to life outside, a sound that vibrated through the diner and into her bones. She stood alone in the quiet, the card clutched in her hand, and felt something shift inside her, a crack in the walls she'd built around her heart. The diner was still the same, with its chipped tables and flickering lights, but it felt different now, like a place where miracles could happen, where strangers could become saviors. Ellie tucked the card into her apron, wiped her eyes, and started cleaning the counter, her movements lighter than they'd been in years. She wasn't free of her past, not yet, but for the first time, she believed she could be. The bikers had given her more than safety, they'd given her a glimpse of a world where kindness could still win, where people could stand up for each other, no matter how broken they were. And as the first customers of the morning trickled in, Ellie smiled, a real smile, not the one she'd practiced for survival, and felt the weight of her fear lift, just a little. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the power of kindness or the strength it takes to stand up, please hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe to Gentle Hearts. Your engagement means the world to us, and we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us, what moved you most about Ellie's story?